Terri Murphy, Senior Editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, in the men's room with Murph. And I have a great man in the men's room with me today. His name is Ed Pinto. He's the Senior Fellow and Director of the AEI Housing Center. And he is about to embark on a real intensely important and critical path on housing and affordability. Welcome, Ed Pinto.
Thank you, Terry. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, it's our pleasure because you and I both know that having just survived COVID and the 2008 back end with housing, that there is a shortage. And if you've been in real estate at all, we know that housing is getting even harder to find, let alone harder to afford. And you are about to launch a series of live events for AEI Institute. Tell us a little bit about the Institute before we go into the details of SB 9 and 10.
Sure, Terry. So AEI stands for the American Enterprise Institute for Public Policy Research. So it's called AEI. It's founded in 1938, and it basically focuses on solutions that, from a public policy point of view, that rely, of course, largely on the free market and free enterprise. And so what the Housing Center does is look at the problems that we have in the housing market. And today we'll be talking about the supply problem, which is nowhere more critical than in California, and ways that the market can be used to create naturally affordable or housing and increase the supply of housing, which will allow more people to own a home, find a place to rent, and ultimately reduce homelessness.
Well, I know that you're about to launch 6 different convenings throughout California to really shine the light on SB 9 and 10. You know, you have been called to speak before Congress on this. This is not, you know, some let's get everybody a home in America kind of rah-rah thing. This is wildly serious, and we know that there's been a diminishing ability for entry-level buyers to get into the market, and that's never been more evident than it is in California. And since California starts everything, that's where you're going to be launching this particular the housing center's issues as they apply to a new bill, SB 9 and 10, indigenous to California. Can you give us a little bit more relevance around that particular bill?
Absolutely. So there have been efforts in California for many years to provide additional housing supply. We dubbed light touch density. What light touch density is density that is just a little bit more than the existing density. It might be the addition of an accessory dwelling unit, duplexes, small townhouses with 3-4 units, 2-family homes, small houses on a second house on a lot splitting. These are all kinds of light density. We came out with this concept and the naming for it back in 2019. And it turned out that Senator Wiener, the state senator, had been looking at changes to zoning laws in California for a number of years. He'd been focusing on high density around transit areas. He saw apparently the concept that we came out with in 2019, dubbed light touch density, and in March of 2020, he introduced a bill called light touch density. Long story short, that bill eventually became Senate Bill 10, which was enacted in September of last year and took effect in January 1st of this year. Along the same time, another senator, Senator Atkins, who is the majority senator pro tem in California, introduced another bill, which was dubbed Senate Bill 9. It also is a light touch density bill. It isn't called that, but it is because it relates to 2 units on a property. And that bill, as I said, also got passed and also took effect January 1 of this year. So we're convening these 6 events in California to acquaint Californians with the bills themselves, what they can do. We think they have tremendous potential if they're implemented according to what the legislature intends. We also think that we have lots of information that we can share. We've put lots on a website. We call it our Housing and Economic Analytics tool, HEAT. And we have that up on our website that provides information about the whole country, but in particular, useful information about the entire state of California and what light touch density can do for California. Importantly, we think that it can provide a big economic boost for California. One of California's biggest problems is lack of supply. And the way I describe it is we owe it to our children and grandchildren to squarely address the housing affordability crisis that California faces, and now other areas of the country are also facing, because our children and grandchildren aren't going to be able to live in California in the future. They're already moving to other states. California has a huge out-migration trend that's been going on for a long time, and the lack of supply stifles economic growth and opportunity, and it creates a worse future for California and for our nation. So this is a very important topic, and we hope to shed a lot of light on the solutions, get support for it, and not only educate people, but have a discussion around this and provide lots of data that will be useful to policymakers, useful to the private sector, useful to citizens about why this is so important.
And Ed, one of the resources that you have is a website that gives way more information about this than we're able to put here. And that is the state California, www.california.aeihousingcenter.org/HEAT, HEAT. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
So it's really interesting because California's been pretty stubborn about zoning and restrictions. I mean, I have personal friends that had a terrific, smaller unit in the back of their home, and they were, it was pretty severe for a while. So California is taking this seriously. They're also talking about walkability so that there is less traffic, less gas emissions. So this is a very comprehensive program, the way I've been able to be familiar with it, which of course is not nearly as strongly as you have. Now, I know that you're going to be working with Tobias Peter on some of the actual transmission of these live events. And who is your target audience for that? Who would you like to show up for those events?
It's open to everyone. It's a free event. Each of the 6 are free events. They run from general 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The one in Las Angeles is a little bit different time frame, but that's all on our the website. But we're targeting this to policymakers, to advocacy groups, to academics, to builder developers, homeowners, renters, anyone who has an interest in this. And again, we think everyone should have an interest because California has got this huge problem in terms of home prices. And we use Santa Clara County, which is San Jose, as an example. The median price of a newly constructed home in San Jose, Santa Clara, is well over $2 million of a new home. And the median price of an existing home is something like 1.3 million. And there are very few people that can afford a home like that. And that's what's being built new. And so you get very few new homes built. And so one might say, well, there's not enough land, there's not enough space for it. Well, there's plenty of space if it were zoned properly to allow that space. And that's why we call it light touch density, because it could range from allowing accessory dwelling units to duplexes to, as I said, small townhouses, et cetera, on lots. The price goes down quite a bit when you divide the land up into smaller pieces, because the land is a big portion of the cost. And that's why housing is so expensive throughout California, but in places like San Jose. It's the land cost, and the zoning policies that have been in place have made land very scarce. There are other policies that drive up the cost, but they've basically made land very scarce. And so if you have a 6,000 square foot lot and you put 2 units on it, the cost of land goes down quite a bit. If you have a 12,000 square foot lot and you have 4 units on it, again, you're really driving the cost of land down, and the price of the houses that you build are, people say, well, what are they going to look like? Well, they're going to look like a lot of the houses that are already in the neighborhood, because somebody who's going to be buying or building on their own lot, they're not going to put up, you know, a really low quality housing. This is not government housing that's going in. This is what the private sector, individuals, homeowners, small developers are going to do to build housing, and they're going to build housing that's compatible with the area. Every place we've studied that puts in light touch density that we've seen, that's what happens. They don't put, you know, we have one place in Charlotte where the houses range from 400,000 to 2 million. Most of the single family houses that are 50, 60 years old, and a lot of California houses are that old because they haven't been building very much. Those houses sell for about $850,000. If you have two choices, you can, or three, you can leave that house there, costs $850,000. You can tear it down and build what we call a McMansion, which generally would cost about $2 million. Why does it cost $2 million? Well, if you tear down a house that's worth $850,000, you then need to put up a house where the land cost is perhaps 40% of the total. Well, if the land cost is going to be 40%, it's $800,000. You have to put up a house that's worth $2 million. It's as simple as that. It's just simple land economics. On the other hand, there was a 12,000 square foot lot, which is not, you know, fairly typical in lots of areas. It's about a quarter of an acre. You can put 4 townhouses on that lot. The townhouses sell for $425,000. So you went from a house that was $850,000 to 4 houses that are 1,300 square feet each that sell for $425,000, and that's, you can actually help lots of people, the children and grandchildren, afford houses. And the houses look very nice. They're not poorly constructed or anything. Because again, this is not the government doing it. This is the private sector, people spending their own money doing these things.
And that's going to increase local revenues. The tax base is going to change. It's going to help lower tax rates. I mean, there's so much implication that happens when we look at the same issue, but differently. And
yes, and you brought up, Terry, you know, very good points. We did a study in Palisades Park, New Jersey, where they just made one simple change. Well, actually, they allowed one thing, and it happened to have been allowed for a very long period of time, back to 1939. But at some point, the land prices become high enough that it justifies starting the process of tearing down some houses and building up 2 in on the same lot. And that process continued over about 30 to 40 years in Palisades Park. And over that time, maybe 50% of the houses converted, but it took 40 years for that to happen. And they now have the lowest tax rate on a per $1,000 basis of any town in the area. The commercial area is worth much more than it was because they have almost twice as many people living relative to the shops, that it's a walking area. And so now the shops have more customers and the rents are higher, but they get more customers so they can afford to pay higher rents. The locality's property taxes are higher. This is you know, a win-win for everybody, but you just have to allow a modest increase in density, which is why we call it light touch density.
Moderate is the key word here. And I know that there's a lot more information at the AEI newsletter, which you publish on a regular basis. Here's the thing about housing. It's the American dream. I just remember my immigrant parents going, all we want to do is own a home. We just want to own a home. And it's been our goal with Realty Times to spread this kind of information as a resource, and the data advocates about how we can help people empower themselves to affordability. And walkability is a big key because that's going to impact, you know, the environment and everything else. So I really honor you for what you're doing. I know that Mr. Tobias, if you'll tell us a little bit about is Tobias Peter, which I always want to convert his name, but tell us a little bit about how that's going to work. We're going to actually start, the first one's going to happen fairly soon, September 19th, which is a month from now.
Yeah, just a month from now.
Yeah, that's going to be at the Hotel Nico in San Francisco, but you're heading right, you're a coastal.
Down the state.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about Tobias.
So Tobias Peters, the assistant director of the Housing Center, and he has done a lot of this research along with Arthur Gales, who is our manager for housing supply initiatives. And we've developed this work. One of the things that we've looked at is what are the current as-built densities in areas around California and across the whole country. That's one of the features we have on our HEAT toolkit. We also have information about the job growth. We have information on where the new construction is down at the census tract level, which is a pretty fine level, way below a zip code. We have job growth. We have job growth at the city level. We have job growth at the census tract level. We have the walkable oriented development tool, which covers the entire country, but all of California. About 30% of the housing in California is within a 10-minute walk. We've mapped out the 10-minute walks and their relationship to amenities, and we call that walkable oriented development. The key to one of the keys to light touch density additionally is it relies on the existing infrastructure. So if you go from 1 to 2 units or 1 to 3 units on a lot, or do a lot split and you get to 4 units, the sidewalks are the same, the streets are the same, the street lights are the same, the trash pickup is almost the same. Yeah, you have a little bit more, but the truck's going by. So, it's not like you have to drive lots of extra miles. The police are going by, the fire department is nearby, the schools are nearby. Some people say, well, what about overcrowding? There were more children in the schools generally 30 years ago. And again, California has older neighborhoods because it hasn't built much. So what's there is pretty old. Those homes had more children in them than they do today. And the schools had more children than they have today. And so having a few more children would actually be a positive thing. And having some younger families would be a positive thing.
Exactly.
And so again, the infrastructure is a huge savings here by using some of these, what we call infill areas. We also have how light touch density can be used in what we call greenfield areas, and California still has a lot of new construction. And we can show again on one of our tools how if you go from a new subdivision of single family homes that has 4 units an acre to 7 units an acre, you're using the exact same amount of land, but you have 40% more units. And again, you have the same infrastructure. And what we have found is that in virtually every case of every county around the country, the square footage of the house goes down a bit. The price of the house goes down as the density goes up. That is the standard that happens. Therefore, if you want to get more affordable economical housing for California's citizens, light touch density is the way to go.
Well, it's certainly critical, and the timing is spectacular. But I mean, this think tank's been around, like you said, since the early 1940s, well, 38. And
Right.
So I just want to tell our audience that you will be in California starting in September 19th. San Francisco, Sacramento, Fresno, Riverside, West Hollywood, and Weston San Diego. And so we will be publishing that through Realty Times and the dataadvocates.com, because we need to help spread the word, get the support, and help the understanding. And I don't think that the American Enterprise Institute has as many fans as it should, because there's some incredible information there that helps us make better decisions. Ed, I know you're going to go right to heaven for all the work you've done. I know that you've had to put up with, with the political, the White House, all of the challenges, but at the end of the day, you've been a champion for home ownership, and that's what we're all about here in real estate and Realty Times and the Data Advocates. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Terry. It was a pleasure.
And if somebody wants to contact you to speak outside of your California fun, I'm saying fun because I'm being irreverent, because I know how much work it's going to be, what would be the best way to reach you?
The best way is my email, which is pintoedward1, all one word, pintoedward, the numeral 1, at gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, we'll be sure to publish that as well. I hope you'll join us again for another segment, because
Absolutely,
it's
Terry.
so vast and so deep and so rich. And as it changes, we're going to want to keep everybody up to date. I'm Terry Murphy for Realty Times. Thank you, Ed Pinto. And thank you,
Terry.
Great things for American and the American dream.